endorse the comments of my colleague from the Green Party and also my colleague Charles Chabal, who I think both have indicated the seriousness of the issue that we are addressing tonight. And I think the point that I want to make is, and I would have made before, was that the key for me is that this was an issue that the government knew they were going to address last year, and we are now in March. And instead of referring the supplementary order paper to the debate here in the House now, in the committee stages, that supplementary order paper, by leave, could have been referred to the Select Committee. And that would have allowed the Select Committee the opportunity to call for submissions and to have the kind of in-depth understanding or develop an in-depth understanding of the issues involved without doing it on the floor of the House. The one thing that I would say, and perhaps add to what others have said, is that I don't have the case in front of me, so I haven't kind of refreshed myself in terms of the detail of it. But my recollection, and this is dim, dark, distant past, is that there were arguments mounted on behalf of those individuals that were, there were applications for judicial review by a couple of people convicted following a criminal trial. But the arguments that were mounted on their behalf were actually quite offensive on a lot of levels, certainly to me, in terms of what they indicated might motivate a judge in terms of the decisions that they would be making based on this acting up allowance and their beholdenness to the executive. But as I say, I really would appreciate the Minister or the Attorney General just giving us an oversight for the record so that we've got it on the record here in the House, what the arguments were and why the government has chosen now to address this problem in the way that they have. I think that the attorney's got a very clear understanding that the only concerns that we are expressing at this point is now around process, that there isn't really an argument about the need for addressing the issues, because, as we say, it is very important that these matters are placed on a secure constitutional foundation, because no one would want to risk allowing a challenge by way of judicial review to succeed, certainly on the grounds that I recall that this case was undertaken. So I think it would be very helpful sometime in the future. Somebody will be looking at this issue, they will be looking at the debate that we held tonight, and they will be looking to see what the motivation was in terms of the government's position on this particular piece of legislation, to make sure that these issues were actually fully debated and addressed in this House, given that they weren't able to be addressed at Select Committee level. And the other thing that I would really like from the Attorney, because I think there's been a lot of goodwill expressed in this House tonight, is I would really like an indication as to whether perhaps in future looking at the option of referring the SOP back to or referring the SOP to the Select Committee by way of leave, rather than seeking the leave to have it debated outside the scope of a particular piece of legislation. Because I feel that if that had been achieved, then I think we would have all had a much better understanding of what the issues were.